Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another in my series of videos about how to pass an advanced driving test. And in this video we're going to look at gears. Specifically we're going to look at gears, use of gears in a manual car. I will do another video about use of gears in an automatic car as well. But this weekend we're up in the lakes and I've got Mrs. Local's Mini, so I thought it was a good time to make a video about use of gears in a manual car. So we're going to look at how to make the correct choice of gear, and we're going to look at how you physically change gear and what the best methods are for changing gear in a manual car. So let's start with the system of car control. And the gear phase is the fourth phase of the 5 phases of the system of car control. In my mind it's a preparatory phase. Choosing the correct gear prepares you for the final phase, which is acceleration. Of course we want the correct gear for the acceleration that we want to make through and away from the hazard. So if you follow those 5 phases of the system of car control in the correct order, take and use and give information, get your position right on approach, get your speed correct for the hazard, then you get to the gear phase. And it's important to note its position in the system after the speed phase. And that's because you don't really know what gear you're going to need until you've reduced your speed to the speed at which you need to negotiate the hazard. So you might start braking for a hazard from say 60 miles an hour and just lose 10 miles an hour, at which point your speed might be correct. In that case you might just go down one gear from maybe 6th to 5th, 5th to 4th, or you might leave it in the gear that it's in. Remember, you don't always need to do anything in relation to those phases of the system of car control. You just need to consider them. Apart from the information phase, you just need to consider each of them in the correct sequence, in the correct order. So if you're only losing a little bit of speed or no speed at all, you might not need a gear change. But if, however, you're braking down from 60 down to 20 miles an hour, well, in this car you might want to change down to 3rd or 2nd gear, which will be an appropriate gear for this car at that speed. Now here's the rub with talking to you about choice of gears and which gear to choose. Every car and every situation is different. Cars have hugely varying gear ratios in the gearbox. So what's right for this car might not be right for my BMW, probably won't be right for your car. So I'm not going to talk about always going down to say 2nd gear at 20 miles an hour or 3rd gear at 30 miles an hour. It's not always correct. Each car is different and you need to know your own car. We talked a little bit in a previous video about knowledge, and another element of knowledge is knowing your own car and its capabilities and which gear it needs. So let's think instead about what we need from the gear. And what we need is one of my favourite terms in advanced driving, and that's flexibility. So you got your position correct on approach to a hazard, got your speed correct, you then want a gear which is flexible for that speed. And what do we mean by flexibility? Well, flexibility means that A, the gear will give you some acceleration when you press the accelerator or the gas pedal, but B, it will also give you a little bit of deceleration as well if you need to lift off the gas pedal a little bit more on approach. So it's not a gear that is so low that the car is running out of revs, so you're at 6,500 revs approaching the rev line, because there's nothing left then to accelerate the car. And it's not a gear that is so high that the car is going to be labouring or chugging or struggling, because the rev counter is right down at just above tick over speed, about 1,000 revs. So when you're choosing a gear, just remember that I'm looking for flexibility, and your examiner will look in to see that you're always in the correct gear for the speed for that vehicle at that time. It's a gear for the speed. Now it may well be that if you've accelerated up to speed on the motorway and you've settled at 70 miles an hour, you'll then want to put the car in a cruising gear, which is fine. In this car it would be into 6th gear, in the BMW it would be into 7th. But there may then be times when, say you're preparing for an overtake for example, and you go through the system of car control, and actually when you're moving around for position, you're looking for the view, you will take a lower gear at that speed. And that's to give the car maximum acceleration for the overtake. But again, we're choosing those gears flexibly and we're choosing the right gear for the right speed. Today, for example, we're just about to drive up the Newlands Pass in the North Lakes, and yes, it's raining really hard. Somebody made a comment on one of my videos recently that it's always raining. Sorry, I can't control the weather. But here on the Newlands Pass, third gear at the moment, just trundling along, not in any rush, and that's an appropriate gear for the speed that we're travelling at. Might bob it up into fourth, might get it down to second for some of the twistier bits of the Newland Pass. So we want to be in the right gear for the speed that we're travelling at. What else? Well, one of the other things about gear changing is you do not need to sequentially go up and down through the gears, by which I mean you should be able to take a chosen gear without taking an intermediate gear first. So for example, it's perfectly acceptable to lose some speed and then go straight from fourth to second gear, if that's the gear that you're going into. What I don't want to see is you going fourth, third, second. That's sequentially changing down through the gearbox, and it's not necessary. Now I tend to more often change sequentially up through the gearbox because I'm looking for maximum acceleration, maximum flexibility from the car. And in order to do that, I would tend to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if I'm accelerating up a motorway slip road, for example, I might get up to 17 fourth gear and then immediately change into sixth gear because I don't need any more flexibility, I don't need any more acceleration from that gear. But especially when you're changing down through the gearbox, and we've covered this in a previous video about the system of car control, I want to brake, come off the brakes, change gear once, and then drive through the hazard. So here, for example, I'm going to brake, third gear, off the brakes, second gear, and change down and accelerate through the hazard. Just a little bit of gas just to keep us going through the little hairpin. Now if we're approaching that at a higher speed in fourth gear, again I'd have gone fourth straight into second gear. So you should be able to take a chosen gear without taking an intermediate gear first. That's in a normal manual transmission car. Now if I'm driving my BMW with a DCT gearbox and I'm using the manual gears, I've no choice, I have to go through every gear because it's a sequential gearbox. But we'll cover that in another video when we look at automatic gearboxes. Now the next thing you need to learn about changing gear in a manual car is that you should try to do it as smoothly as possible. It's very easy just to bang the car through the gears, jump on and off the clutch, get that jerk when you're coming off the clutch, especially when you're changing down through the gearbox. But there's some real advantages to changing gears smoothly. Firstly, it's just nice, and this is an advanced driving course that you're taking part in, and we want to drive to as high a standard as possible. And a really good driver should be able to change gears smoothly, more smoothly than an automatic transmission, even a modern one, if you get it right. Better for your passengers. It will impress your examiner. It will reduce the possibility that your passengers will get travel sick, because it's those little movements backwards and forwards that induce travel sickness, especially in children. It's also good for your car. If you're rough with the clutch and rough with the gearbox, you're going to increase the amount of wear that you put in, especially on your clutch. It is a wear and tear item, but you can make a clutch last the whole lifetime of a car. I've never once changed a clutch in all the cars I've had in 35 years of driving. I've got a friend who's got a little car that's, I think it's a Mitsubishi, and at the last count, that car had over 250,000 miles on it, and it's still on its original clutch because he's a very smooth driver. And it's not cheap having a clutch fitted in your car, so there are benefits to you, benefits to your wallet in learning to change gear smoothly. But how do we do it? Well, I'll give you a few tips. I have made some other videos about changing gear and changing gears smoothly and effectively. I'll put a link in the description below. Go and have a look at those as well, because they go into it in a great deal of detail. But what I've done today is stuck a couple of cameras in so that you can see what I'm doing with my hand, what I'm doing with my feet. And let's start first of all with use of the clutch. So, the rule of thumb with the clutch is you can press it in as fast as you want. press it as fast, as hard as you want, stomp on that clutch, it won't affect the smoothness of the drive at all, because all you're doing is separating the clutch plate from the flywheel when you press the clutch. So, just while we're on this slightly flatter bit here, I'll show you on the pedal. You can press the clutch as fast as you want, but you should always bring it back slowly. So it's fast in, slow out. Fast in, slow out. If we break it down even more than that, it's fast in, fast up to the biting point, slowly through the biting point, and then you can step off the clutch, because it's just the biting point that affects the smoothness. The biting point is the part where the clutch plate and the flywheel just start rubbing together and just start taking up the drive. So, rule of thumb with the clutch, fast in, slow out, or fast in and then slow through the biting point. The next thing to look at is how you use the gear stick itself. And this is the biggest secret to smoothing out your gear change. And if you just do this one thing, your gear changes will be far smoother than they are at the moment. And that is, slow your gear change down. Pause when it's in neutral. I like to refer to it as acknowledging the neutral phase. So most people go third, straight into fourth gear. Fourth, straight into third gear. What actually I want you to do is go third, neutral, fourth. Slight pause at the neutral point. Fourth, neutral, third. Above everything else, that will slow your gear change down. Third, neutral, second. That will smooth everything out. You combine that with a nice smooth use of the clutch, it'll make for a really smooth gear change. But the other thing you can do when you're changing gear is work with the revs, work with your right foot on the accelerator. And I'm going to start with your up changes from first to second. I'm just going to pull over very briefly here, because there's nothing in front or behind, and just explain what I mean. When you set off in first gear, it's really easy to rush the gear change, because you're usually setting off out of a junction, looking for traffic around you, trying to get into a gap. And also, the revs tend to go quite high, and there's a big drop in revs from first to second, and there's a lot of torque going to the wheels as well. So all that combined makes for quite a rough gear change if you rush the gear change. So first thing, we want to slow the gear change down a little bit, but the big secret to smoothing out your changes up through the gearbox is to pause the acceleration just before you change gear. So I want you to watch the rev counter and watch the speedo, and you'll see that my speed goes up, and then I pause the acceleration just before I change gear. And what happens is, there's drive in the gearbox when you're accelerating, so there is friction between the gears, or the dog rings, there is friction there, and it's more difficult to change gear. But if you change gear after pausing the acceleration, the gearbox relaxes and you get a much smoother gear change. So let's try it. First gear, I'm going to accelerate, and then I'm going to pause the acceleration just before we change gear. So first gear, accelerate, pause the acceleration, change gear, then pick the acceleration up again. It's 100 times smoother than rushing that first to second. Second to third, pause the acceleration, change up, nice and smooth, pick the acceleration up again. Third, accelerate, and then pause the acceleration, third to fourth, then pick the acceleration up again. Let's just do that one more time while it's quiet on the Newlands Pass. First gear, accelerate, pause the acceleration, change gear, pick up the acceleration again, and it's nice and smooth. Pause the acceleration in second gear, change up, and it's nice and smooth. So that's how to smooth out your up changes. To smooth out your down changes, so going from third to second, the secret is to match the revs. So I want you to think about this. I'm doing 30 miles an hour in third gear now. The car's doing 2,000 revs. If I change down to second gear at the same speed, the revs will go up to 3,000 revs because I'm in a lower gear. So what I'm going to do is squeeze the revs. It wasn't the best, but I'm going to squeeze the revs to 3,000, bring the revs up. And we needed it for that hill, but I've maintained the speed at 30. In a more flexible gear. Here we are at the top of the Newlands Pass, not much of a view from up here today. So we'll probably need to get down the pass before I do any more down changes. Oh, here we are. Okay, we can go up to third here. So, change up to third. The speed come up to 30 miles an hour-ish. And then I'm going to change down and raise the revs. And you'll see what I'm doing is, as I'm changing gear, I'm not lifting off the gas pedal, I'm squeezing it a little bit. And what that's doing is that's bringing the engine revs up to match the engine revs for the next gear down the gearbox, for second gear, for the speed that we're travelling at. It's a really nice skill to learn. The best way to practice it is to find a 30-mile-an-hour road and just change between second and third gear, squeezing the revs up a little bit as you change down through the gearbox. I'll give you another demonstration in a second once we drop down this pass a little bit, once it flattens out a little bit. I'm just using second gear to hold us on the hill for the time being. Might start a new channel, Advanced Boating with Reg Local. Look at the state of this. Here we go, bit of motorboating. So third gear, I'm going to change down to second gear now, squeeze the revs, bring the revs up. And you don't feel the gear change, you hear it, but you don't feel it. You hear the revs rise, you don't feel it through the car. It takes away that jerkiness of a down change. Now, one of the nice things about this car is if you put it in a sport setting, it will rev match for you without you making any effort at all. So if I put it into sport now, and I change down to second gear, the rev matching there is done by the car and it perfectly rev matches every time. I like to think I'm reasonably good at rev matching in a car, but this car's better than me. Certainly more consistent than I am. So again, if you look at the rev matching, just get through this puddle. I change down to second gear now. The car perfectly rev matches for me. It's a really nice system to use. I was a bit against it when I first tried it, but actually I think it's a great system. You'll find it on a few cars these days, auto rev matching. If you want to, on advanced car test, use it. If your car does it, use it. If your car's got technology in it and you want to use it and it gives you an advantage, by all means use it. So, what are your examiners looking for from the different organisations, IAM Road Smart, ROSPA and the police? What are they looking for in relation to your use of a manual gearbox on advanced car test? Well, let's start with IAM and ROSPA. If you want to pass at IAM or get a bronze or silver at ROSPA, then they're looking for reasonably smooth gear changes most of the time. Some might be a little bit rough, might be a little fluff, but they're looking to see a bit of an effort to slow the gear change down. Remember, the secret in this is giving yourself time to get the gear change. And the secret in all of that is getting your braking right. Go back through my old videos, especially to the ones about system braking, and you'll see that the secret is getting your braking right and giving yourself time to get the gear. So IAM and ROSPA, if you want to pass or a bronze or a silver, slow your gear changes down, take your time, try to make them as smooth as you can, and you should be able to get a pass or a bronze or silver at ROSPA. If you want to get a first at IAM Road Smart, or you want a gold at ROSPA, then they're looking for much more consistent, smooth gear changes with a bit of an effort to rev match as well. Again, if you get your braking right and you give yourself time to get the gear, you've got time to match the revs and make for a nice smooth gear change. But consistency is the key on those tests. For the police, well, operationally, most police forces these days at advanced level, traffic cars, armed response vehicles, all that kind of liveried high performance police vehicles, the vast majority have automatic gearboxes these days. And like I said before, I will do another video in my car when we get home about use of gears in an automatic. But you will still be doing some driving in manual cars on your advanced car test, and you'll be expected to perform well in a manual car. So, to pass your police advanced car test, consistent smooth gear changes, good choice of gears, keeping the car in a flexible gear at all times. Remember, on your police course, we're looking to get maximum performance out of the car. So holding those lower gears for longer, using the revs for longer, revving the car out. Not just changing up at 2000 revs, but using the flexibility of the engine and the gearbox. Remember that word, flexibility. It comes into almost everything that we're doing at advanced level in the car. And work on your consistency, work on your gear changes, try to get them really buttery smooth. Remember, it's one of the first things you'll do in the car when you set off on advanced car test is you'll change gear. And you can set the right impression with your examiner in the first 5 minutes. And sometimes it's difficult to waver them away from that first impression. You can set a good example in the first 5 minutes. You're giving yourself some credits, and they might be a bit more forgiving if you make the odd mistake here and there. So that's it for this video, use of gears in a manual car. Like I say, I will do one in an automatic car as well very shortly after this video. Hope you've enjoyed it, hope you found it useful. Hope you've enjoyed the roads actually, despite the weather. This is the Honister Pass, by the way. Leads to an old slate mine at the top of Honister Pass. Big circular route towards Keswick. Anyway, thanks for watching. Go and have a look at the website as well, regilocal.com. There's loads more information there about advanced and performance driving and riding. Information about the books that I've written, which a lot of people find helpful to accompany this series of videos, or if you're doing an advanced driving test. The first book in particular, Advanced and Performance Driving, covers a lot of the stuff that I talk about in the videos. So go have a look at that. You can get yourself a copy off Amazon. And there's also some information on the website about how you can get a day's driver or rider coaching with me. Lots of drivers booked in this year, no riders yet. So if you fancy a day out, maybe on a drier day than this, that river's looking a bit full, drop me an email and we will sort something out. We'll have a ride out. But for now, thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. And we'll see you next time.